Now, about 32 senior high schools in the Ashanti region have received stocks of rice, maize, sardine, among others. Some heads of the schools, however, fear the items received may not be enough to cater for the student population if additional supplies are not made. Sugar, which is the most sought commodity, remains in short supply, forcing some schools to adjust their breakfast menu. Love FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku has more in the following report.
Senior high schools across the country have been confronted with food shortages in the past weeks. Some students have had to grapple with the deficits in food items like rice, maize, and flour, which are the major staples on the menu of most schools. As a result, some students resorted to buying food from nearby eateries. However, there appears to be an improvement as some senior high schools in the Ashanti region took delivery of some food items. Andrews Boateng is the headmaster of the Kumasi Senior High Technical School.
The government promised to send us the full stock to our various schools. Fortunately for us, we received about 20 bags of maize last Friday. Today they call some of the schools, those who have zero stock of rice, to come to the buffer stock to take rice. But unfortunately, we were having at least 2 weeks stock, so we're not included. But checking the list, about 32 schools were called this morning to come for their rice, depending on the number of rice which came to the buffer stock.
Sugar remains one of the most sought-after food commodities by many senior high schools. It is, however, yet to be supplied. As a result, the school authorities have had to re-strategize what students take for breakfast.
As at now, we don't have sugar, but that's why we are managers of the school. Sugar, we have the rich choco, yes, the Milo. The Milo, because already contains sugar, so we're taking more Milo as compared to the normal menu. We are praying that the other full serves will come. We need it urgently because we can't continue serving them with the Milo. It will also finish. It will finish. And if it finishes and we don't get the tea, we don't have any option than to ask the student to bring their own sugar, which shouldn't be the best.
There are urgent calls for supply of additional food items.
Most of the borders depend on the boarding food. So we need the food badly, because without the food, we can't serve the bodies. And if they don't eat, how can we teach them? Yes, they are here for academic purpose. Yes, so at least the food must come so that they can eat the food and for the teachers to also get a chance to teach them.
For JoyNews, Emmanuel Bright Kweku reporting.
Now, in today's 11 Standard series, fuel is the biggest spender, apart from food, on the budget of businessman and car owner Maverick. As a result, his movement have drastically reduced. His social life is out of gear. Osei Thompson has more in the latest episode of the 11 Standard series.
I say I don't want fuel. So you left the ride for office there. What did they pick? They pick say go house. It's, I won't lie. See, if I get someone to give me free fuel, I'm a pepper. Because it's heavy on the wallet. Entertainment or recreational luxury is really out of the question.
Businessman Maverick has ended his day and is getting ready to pick up his wife so they can go home together. He's been driving his dad's GMC Terrain for about 2 weeks, and the fuel consumption is stretching his budget. In the past week alone, he spent more than 1,000 cedis on fuel for his rounds. His fuel gauge is down. He calls his friend to cushion him. Unfortunately, his friend's situation is not any better.
I say I don't want fuel. So you left the ride for office there. What did they pick this go house? You get Uber 4 CD, 5 CD they go out. Then why they drive there? Because you don't really move around plate. See, you do go barbecue for road top. We go survive. We go survive.
Maverick is one of many car owners struggling to keep up with the high fuel costs. Apart from food and utilities, the next big spender on his budget is fuel. He lives in Tema and works at Spintex. His wife works at Weja. He drops his wife at the Accra Mall before continuing to his office. With his everyday commute, his Toyota Vitz consumes an average of 400 cedis fuel weekly. But a year ago, it was monthly with the same amount.
For a Vitz, I'm doing like 400. I can do 400, 450 a week on fuel. A week, if maximum 2 times in a week. Maximum 2 times in a week. There would be occasions where I can do 3 times. I won't lie, see, if I get someone to give me free food, I'm a pepao.
The situation has forced Maverick and his wife to make some hard decisions. They have had to recalculate their budget such that it reduces their movement. As much as possible, they avoid casual outings except for work and emergencies.
Entertainment or recreational luxury is really out of the question. So it is work, home, work, home, work, home. We don't really go out, right? Just to make sure that we save fuel. And at times, we have to shop. So if we're going to shop for groceries, what my wife would do is that, look, we'll sit down, draw up a list. Then she's like, okay, I'll get the groceries and stuff. What I can do to help her, if I'm working, it means that sometimes I would try and close early so that I can pick her up from the market, right? Just so that I will reduce the cost of her taking the stuff from the market and then bringing it to the house because we live far away.
It has even affected their social life. Maverick seldom sees his friends physically because of fuel consumption. Their meetings now are mostly virtual hangouts and phone calls.
We have a group from back in school, and so the idea was that we would have probably met to sit down, a few drinks, some meeting, and then it never happened. Oh, God save, sometimes it doesn't even happen.
Maverick is one of many hoping for a stable fuel pricing system. It will afford him an allowance to plan well and get his social life back on track.
Now, a falling tree has killed at least one person and injured another at Bubuashie here in Accra. The huge tree fell onto the road early Sunday morning, cutting electricity connection to the entire neighborhood. The deceased is reported to have climbed the tree in an attempt to cut off the hanging branches to allow the free flow of vehicular and human traffic. He fell off and was subsequently pronounced dead at the hospital. My colleague Manuel Kranting was there and our reports.
Chainsaw machines busy cutting through branches of trees hanging out into the road. A duty assigned to the Department of Parks and Gardens has for years seen no action. A joint team of officials from the National Disaster Management Organization and the Electricity Company of Ghana are now up the trees by the help of a crane. From a height of about 15 meters, the men are trying to clear the debris of trees which fell onto the houses and blocked the road. Before now, at least 2 people had fallen off mid-air while attempting to clear the trees.
We had loud sound around 3 a.m. on Sunday dawn. We came out to see the huge tree blocking the road, so the boys tried to clear it.
One of them was confirmed dead, while the other, a NADMO official, is still receiving treatment.
Unfortunately, one of our guys was standing. By then, when this tree fell, it was hanging there. It didn't come down. So he was cutting one of these branches on this roof. When he cut it off, then this place, then he sprang into the up, then he came to fell down.
He actually bounced all the way into the sky.
Then the head came to hit the ground, then it blasted.
My incident happened, you know. Unfortunately, taxi drivers.
When it happened, we all tried to help, but no taxi driver wanted to help until a good Samaritan helped us. In no time, we saw the NADMO official also falling down. His colleagues picked him in their car and took him to the hospital. Right adjacent to the scene of the accident is a home of deceased Edmund Dano. The 52-year-old mechanic sprayer had gone to help the boys to clear the debris. Now, his wife and 2 children have to live knowing he's never returning again. Here's a spokesperson for the family.
Uncle like this, he's a very calm guy. He's married with 2 kids, and the first one is in Accra Polytechnic, and the second one too is a pre-second, which is a pre-tech Legon. This is very sad, as you can see. You can see behind me. The wife cannot even come out. The sisters are all here. The father, everybody. So it's very sad. It's a sad moment to all of us because unexpected. It was a shock to all of us. Somebody that I can say I even spoke to him around 4:30. Less than 2 hours, and this happened. So it's a shock. It's a shock to us, and people are still not even believing it. Yeah, some of us. We have to go to the morgue to see with the eye before we confirm if it is true. It's a sad news to us, especially being a breadwinner of the family is very sad.
But they blame authorities for not acting early enough to prune the overgrown avenue trees on the road.
It could have been prevented. It could. We have an assemblyman in this area. They've seen this not today. I mean, these trees, they are, if I'm not lying, it will be over 20 years. And if they are overgrown, you need to do pruning, proper pruning. But they left them. Even if you go to the top, there are other trees there. Then they don't care. It's very sad. It's very sad. So I think we should be proactive as a nation. The authorities should be proactive in certain things. You don't wait for something to happen before you take actions. And it's quite sad, my brother.
Yeah. At this point, who's going to take care of the wife, really, and then the children? Now, with sad faces, the deceased family, like many of the other residents in the area, are dreading another disaster as the trees continue to grow into the road. Manuel Cranting, JoyNews, Accra.
Very sad happening there. Now, let's bring in the Communications Director of NADMO, George Ayisi, for more on this. Thank you so much, Ms. Ayisi, for joining us. Confirm for us, what's the condition of your man who was injured?
Thank you. He's been observed for some time and discharged the same day.
Oh,
so
okay.
He's getting better now.
And we are told these trees are hanging all the way onto the road. How come we had to wait for this to happen before we took any action?
It's unfortunate that normally when it comes to some of these trees, it's the ECG people who have been doing the trimming and cutting, and then Department of Parks and Gardens, they are to be observing some of these things so that we wouldn't be experiencing some of these things. So it's unfortunate that it's happened that way, but we will appeal to the Departments of Parks and Gardens to continue to observe. Because as we speak with you, my men are saying ECG has begun cutting down, trimming some of the trees and their branches. What actually happens is a big branch of one of the trees came down, and that is what caused the problem.
What's the relationship between NADMO and other organizations that really work in the space which you also operate? For example, with regards to this one, the Parks and Gardens. What's the relationship?
We have relationships with a lot of agencies, but with Parks and Gardens, I can say we have such close ties. We have such close ties working together. I cannot say so. But maybe effective immediately, we need to strengthen such relationships so that we can be working in partnership. But we work in partnership with ECT. Most of these streamings, because they interfere with the ECT lines and co, they've been doing the streaming from time to time.
Okay. So what is the state of your response on the ground as we speak? You mentioned that your guys are still there. You mentioned that your guys are still on the ground. I'm asking, what's the state of your response on the ground as of now?
What is the state
of your response? I mean, you mentioned that your men are still there. So what's the state as we speak?
Oh, okay. We have to cut the trees away and cool. And as you said, one person lost their life. And my man said the circumstances under which he lost his life was a bit worrying, bizarre to them.
Okay.
But
so what I wanted to get from you is, your men are still there. What is happening now at this place?
Oh, no. They cut the trees and co, and they've moved on. We're conscientizing the people in the area. Some were really surprised. But ECT and our men are cutting, they are trimming the rest of the trees that are there. They are doing that.
Well, as people say, we don't need to wait for things to happen. So we see many huge avenue trees on the road. What will you recommend to be done to prevent a recurrence of what we've seen?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. The Department of Parks and Gardens should be prompted that, they should begin to inspect some of these trees and then begin to trim them when there are weaker ones. Because when you do continuous suspension, you begin to see the weaker branches and then you trim them off so that people's lives and properties will not be at risk. It's unfortunate we lost a life as a result of these fallen trees.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Mr. George. You see that he is the PRO for NADMO. Now, a swift police intervention saved a member of parliament for SUAME, Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu, from being attacked by angry artisans at a SUAME magazine where he was pelted and his entourage as well with sachet water and other items. The angry artisans say delays by government in fixing the deplorable SUAME roundabout macro stretch of the main Kumasi-Techiman Road is not only hampering businesses in the industrial hub, but also threatening lives. My colleague, Ohiming Tewia, who was on the ground, has more in this report.
What appeared a reactionary visit by the Member of Parliament for SUAME to concerns of his constituents over the deplorable rules turned hostile. Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu and his entourage, including the municipal chief executive for SUAME, were surprisingly met by hostile artisans who chanted war songs as they threw sachet water and other items on the officials. The Ashanti Regional Police Commander COP Bubuashie later arrived to help calm the agitated artisans. Mr. Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu, who was surprised at the action, continued to hang around a conference room where a meeting with representatives of the artisans and spare parts dealers had been scheduled to take place. The artisans later regrouped as they chanted war songs against their legislature.
Asama eha obia no omo bibia kwan se bebusa ubusa no onzo ye de enya aboche no wayiwa no enti enya yetimi frosoro ne de Kyei-Mensah kan nyina to yasum e ma ye hu se de akoso no enya boapaye na mo bibi na ye de asie ntia ensu a yeto
yeah, and in your and Abba because Yakwanya, Missing Nano, and Nano Yawada, Name Quat Tachimai. You want blame against one of Davani or Popotos no pro peer, and who ya men of the court G, me, Madame de Court G, acquiring
magazine for no demonstration say
the majority leader, who has represented the SUAME constituency for over 25 years, told the press he understands the concerns and conduct of the agitated artisans.
Spoken to the contractor who has, as I said, been able to procure the bitumen, and within the next couple of days is coming to complete what he has started. That is the reshaping of the road and the application of another overlay of asphalt. So in the next 3 days, the hope is that we'll begin applying the asphalt, and hopefully, let's say the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you should be able to finish with it. But the reason why we are here, to assure the artisans that this is what is about happening, and also to appeal to them that in the very near future, government is going to begin the construction of the interchange at SUAME. It is also going to cause some dust. And if it's difficult for them to tolerate this, it will also be very difficult for them to tolerate the other one, the major construction. I'm the face of government, so if they are really angry that it's been a while since the scraping of the surface and dust is killing them, certainly when they see any government official, they will vent their spleen on the person. So I'm not worried.
Under strict police protection, the MP was whisked away to safety in a police vehicle which was chased by the mob. From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Oimiteria reporting.
Now, former Chief of Staff Kojo is asking President Akufo-Addo to consider a reshuffle immediately. According to the president's former boss, the new patriotic party has limited time to renew the trust of Ghanaians as they head to the polls in the 2024 elections. Government recently announced an austerity plan with the IMF. Although he admits the austerity plan will work, Kojo says it will be untenable for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to remain at post. In an exclusive interview with JoyNews, that the former government appointee recounts the decision by the first MPP government to turn to the Bretton Woods for a HIPIC program.
Right. If I were him, I would resign.
You still hold that view?
I still hold that view.
Even in the face of the explanation he's giving?
Well, you can always give an explanation. Why not? And I'm not doubting his explanation. Right. But I'm saying if I were in his position, because I find it untenable to go and sit with the IMF, because I've stated it so many times that that is not the way to go. So what new thing am I going to tell them? Go and say them, assuming they were to ask me. They don't do that. Assuming they were to ask me, oh, why are you now coming to talk to us? Something? Oh, I've changed my mind. Well, I can say that. But what would they think about me?
You feel his presence may affect the negotiations?
I don't know.
Right. But you comparing what happened, for instance, during the Kufuor era, when you turned to HIPIC, and looking at that decision to go to the IMF, for instance, do you feel that the conditions are the same, and that looking at that experience?
When Kufuor came, we were broke. The country was totally broke. The records are there. Even within government, within his government, there were those of them who said, no, we're a proud nation, so we shouldn't go to declare ourselves HIPIC. He listened to everybody, but it's a responsibility. And the books were read to him, he looked at it and told them, look, I'm going to HIPIC. If there's any of you who believe that that's a wrong decision, you have the liberty to resign. And we went to HIPIC, and the outcome we all know.
But for instance, we've heard from the likes of former President John Dramani Mahama, who've also waded into the performance of the economy. He believes that the Vice President should also be taking on for that, not just the Finance Minister, but the entire economic management team.
You see, unfortunately, this political system we have,
right,
the Vice President is there. Can only remove him by him resigning or vote of no impeachment,
right,
or an election, you know. And Vice President is not the final authority. Number one is the President. But the Vice President may resign and say, I don't believe in any IMF, and because of that I'm resigning. And they have every right to do that. But he's not directly in charge of the economy.
Some say he's made a lot of promises, a reason for which,
well, unfortunately,
on grounds of principle,
yes. Unfortunately, yes. These days I listen in the morning to some of your stations and whatnot, and they always start by referring to some of the old speeches made by the Vice President and whatnot, and then follow it up with discussions on some of those issues. It's unfortunate, yes. Unfortunately, he did that. Maybe if hindsight would say that maybe if I have another opportunity, I shouldn't behave that way.
Should he apologize to Ghana?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It would be fine if he said, but human beings, you know, we are difficult. But it wouldn't be out of place if he said, well, I was wrong. But it's always difficult, especially for the politicians.
Now, the Jammeh to Justice Ghana coalition is urging the government of Ghana to contact the Gambia government to claim the $600,000 compensation allocated to the victims and survivors of the 2005 massacre of 44 Ghanaians and other West African nationals, in accordance with the directive issued in the Gambia's white paper on the Gambian Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission's recommendations. It's been 2 months since the Gambian government accepted to pay the compensation. Now, what's the plan and timelines in effecting the payment? Project manager of the Jammeh to Justice Ghana coalition at the Center for Democratic Development Ghana, REGINA OFORIWAA AMANFO, joins us live with more. Thank you so much for joining us, REGINA. How many victims and survivors are to receive these compensation?
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to your listeners. So, in all, the West African migrants who suffered unlawful abuse, killing, are over 56, and among them, 44 are Ghanaians. So we have over 56 people who are supposed to benefit from the reparation.
Where and how are they at the moment as we speak?
So for us at CDD Ghana, Jammeh to Justice Coalition, we have these majority of the victims, Ghanaian victims, coming from Ashanti region, Bono and Ahafo region, and also Western region. And then when you come to West Africa, we have some of the victims coming from Nigeria, Togo, Nigeria and Togo, and also Senegal.
And these are victims you are in constant communication with?
Exactly that. So since 2017, Jammeh to Justice Ghana Coalition have been engaging both the victims and survivors through our work, through investigations that we conducted in 5 West African countries. We identify about 3 survivors in addition to the sole survivor that we knew, Martin Shrek. So far we have about 4 survivors that through our work, we have identified. And then we also have the victims, their family members, some their children, wives, and also uncles and aunties that we have been engaging since 2017.
Okay. Now let's talk about the compensation. The coalition sees the $600,000 as woefully inadequate. Why so?
Exactly that. I think nothing, I want to say that nothing will really bring back life. So those who have lost their lives, who were brutally murdered by Yahya Jammeh and his accomplices, there is no way we will have them back. but appropriate compensation or reparation is very, very important. And the reason why Jammeh Justice Coalition and the victims, survivors, and the victims' families are saying that the amount that the TRC recommended and it has been accepted by the government in its white paper is woefully inadequate in the sense that there was a case in Gambia where a media official was abused, and the case was sent to ECOWAS court. Parliament. And the court actually recommended, the least that the court recommended was $100,000 for the victim. This is someone who just suffered an abuse. So losing over 44 Ghanaians and others who suffered unlawful imprisonment, abuse, and all that, recommending just 600,000 over a little over 600,000 USD is woefully inadequate. And that is why we are calling on the government of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and his government to, as soon as possible, engage the Gambian government and start renegotiating for this amount because it's woefully inadequate, as we have stated, and also lay down modalities and measures to ensure that they get this reparation as soon as possible. And the reason we are recommending this as something that is urgent is that these are very vulnerable people, poor people, who have nothing. Some of them, because of what happened to them, their children have lost out on education, their parents have suffered a lot. And if there is a reparation, I think it's appropriate for the president to show a very serious interest in it and as soon as possible ensure that the Gambian president starts paying this reparation to the victims as something that is urgent.
So what will be adequate or just enough to settle the victims and survivors?
Even though I'm not a victim, I think from experience and from what we have been observing in other countries, we know this is a West African country. Gambia is not a rich country, because if this had happened in Europe or States, I'm sure we'll be looking at millions of dollars. But looking at Gambia, we know they are also in economic difficulty. So the least that I will recommend is 100,000 USD per head. So we should be looking at with 56 victims. We should be looking at that over millions of dollars, so that the victims per victim 100,000 USD will be something that is moderately appropriate. At least, as I stated earlier, it will not bring back life, but at least something that they can also fall on, and then at least cushion them a little bit for the pain that they have suffered. That will amount to some $6.6 million there. But since May this year, after the Gambian authorities accepted to pay the $600,000 US, what steps do we know have been taken to enforce this payment? So in the TRC report that the commission that was set up by the Gambian government, in their report, they indicated that for the reparation, the payment of reparation, they're going to engage government. So we were expecting that the government of Ghana, after the report, will actually call on the victims and the survivors and victims' families to engage them and then at least give information and show them that they are in touch with the Gambian government and they will ensure that justice is done them. Unfortunately, and that is very, very unfortunate, it seems the government is not interested in this issue. Over 44 Ghanaians brutally murdered, some suffered unlawful imprisonment, abuse, and a government is not interested in ensuring that justice is done its people. So since the report came out 2 months after the government also came out with its 6 months after the government of Gambia came out with its white paper accepting the recommendations. And for us, we are very happy that the government of Gambia accepted all the recommendations made by the TRC, want to confirm that Yahya Jammeh and his accomplices were responsible for the brutal murder of these victims. and also the payments of reparation. The government of Ghana is supposed to follow up through its Attorney General, through its Foreign Minister, should be able to begin engagement with the Gambian government and even the CRC to ensure that the necessary measures are put in place for these victims, poor people, to get this reparation.
So
as I stated, unfortunately, the government has not shown any interest.
So what timelines? What timelines are we looking at here?
So since it stated that it will be since the report that came out and the government white paper indicated that it's going to be government to government. There should be discussion between the two governments, that's the government of Ghana and that of Gambia, so that they can agree on timeline. Unfortunately, the government of Ghana has not shown any interest to engage, not that we know of. And we at Jammeh Justice Coalition are willing to facilitate whatever meeting the government is interested in having, so that we can ensure that justice is done to these poor victims. Okay.
Now, at this time of the day, aren't we too late in the day to be talking about a real look at the amount that the Gambian government should be paying?
Not at all. Not at all. I think discussions starting now will be very much appropriate, so that right from the beginning, the Gambian government will know that we are not happy with the amount that they have indicated in the report, that it will be a reparation for the victims, so that in preparation, they will have that at the back of their minds, and whatever they can do to increase it to appreciable level, they will do that. So I don't think it's too early or it's too late. Not at all. Okay.
REGINA AMANFO is project manager at the Jammeh to Justice Coalition at the CDD. Now, Director of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Center, Professor Kwesi Ening, says Ghana is in zero preparedness against any terrorist threat. Speaking on the AM show, Professor Kwesi Ening said the absence of the necessary logistical preparedness needed to withstand any such threat has made the country vulnerable.
The rhetoric from Accra is fantastic. The operational, hands-on, logistical inputs into capacitating those at the front lines and within the territory to be able to respond and to degrade is almost non-existent. Make my point very clear. In August, between July and September 2020, I traveled around every single border post in this country and wrote the United Nations report on conflict vulnerability in Ghana, focusing particularly on the 6 Northern region. That painted a dire picture of unpreparedness, of empty rhetoric, of a penchant for waxing lyrical and not placing the logistics in place. I went to Kulungugu, I went to Pusiga, I went to Paga, I went to Hamle, I was in Boko. Level of preparedness is zero.
Now, several people have been injured after a bus full of passengers veered off the road. The Metromass bus, which was carrying about 67 people, was heading up north from Pandai. Somersaulted into the bush at Palkori on the Tamale to Yendi Road. Let's speak to our correspondent, Martina Bogri, for more on this. Martina, what more can you tell us on this particular accident? Martina, if you can hear me, what more can you tell us on this accident? Martina, I'm asking, what details do you have on this accident?
Hello.
So there's an accident where we are told that several people have been injured after a bus full of passengers veered off the road. We understand this bus is a Metromass bus which was carrying about 67 people and was heading up north from Pandai. It's somersaulted into the bush at Palkori on the Tamale to Yendi Road. And pictures available to Joy News show that the bus is lying halfway on the ground. Martina Bugri is our correspondent and she's joined us with details. Martina, what more do we know about this accident?
We are told that the Metromass bus was traveling from Pandai to Tamale this morning. And after the bypass sank, some of the passengers who spoke to me are alleging that the driver was asleep and then veered off the road and then hit a culvert, and then, the accident happened. We are the TTH as we speak now. This is what some are saying to us, but we are yet to get information from the hospitals as to the extent of injuries that they have suffered. But some have suffered minor injuries. I have seen some. I've also seen some with bandages all over themselves. I'm told that some are also in critical condition. So we are yet to get more information on what happened and then the extent of injuries they have suffered.
The time this happened?
I didn't get that. If you could repeat that.
Do we know the time this accident happened?
It happened this morning around 6, I'm told.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's our correspondent, Martina Bugri, there. So the driver allegedly was sleeping and that resulted in this accident. We'll take a quick break. We'll return with business. Stay with us.
Ghana's tourism sector is expected to be revived through innovation and collaborative efforts from sector players and stakeholders. According to Adansi Travels, partnering with SG Bank is another way of supporting players in the industry to boost the once vibrant tourism sector. Managing Director for Adansi Travels, Gideon Asari, hinted that the package will respond to many challenges of tourists in the country.
With a lot of destinations open up, a lot of people are really eager to get some fresh air by venturing out and going out to new places. And however, we know that the current war in Ukraine has affected fuel prices, including aviation fuel.
Hi, welcome to Business. My name is Darrell Kwao. Some students of the University of Ghana are calling on government to be prudent in spending to help bring back life to the economy. The students addressing issues confronting the Ghanaian economy at the maiden edition of the Joy Business Town Hall meeting at the University of Ghana Business School said government needs to review some initiatives, including the Electronic Transaction Levy, Free SHS, and the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative. Here's more.
The maiden Joy Business Town Hall meeting was held at the R.S. Samagashi Hall of the University of Ghana Business School. The initiative is aimed at advancing conversations about everyday happenings in the business ecosystem and a medium to prefer solutions. The 4-member panel enumerated a number of economic issues that touched on Ghana's growing debt stock, inflation, interest rates, e-levy, and the decision to go to the IMF.
Figures currently show that Ghana loses about 5 billion Ghana cedis through tax incentives and tax evasion, which means that if we are able to put in the proper mechanisms, make sure that people don't invade our tax system, make sure that these incentives given to these multinationals are reduced, we can actually raise some revenue that can show us up.
What I believe the country can do, in addition to fiscal policy adjustments, is that we can consider supply side policies. Now that we've identified that, it's cost-push inflation that we are facing, we can find out that what goods are driving the inflation rates of both food items and non-food items. What food items are driving the month-over-month increase in inflation? Is it bread? Is gobe? We don't know out as a country. We know that, we know that A, B, and C is what's causing inflation. And the government implements subsidies, tries to reduce the cost of production for these goods.
Presenting their expectations ahead of the 2022 mid-year budget review, the panel said they expect government to pursue policies that would reduce the country's debt.
You realize that our exchange rate keeps increasing since the beginning of the year. It has really depreciated. And so I expect that exchange rates, items, or expenditures such as the external interest payments would also increase. And that will also increase our expenditure.
Considering the accounting concept, which is the prudence concept, I think I wouldn't anticipate to make so much money when I think there's another option. You're anticipating that, yes, the citizens will pay the e-levy so that you'll be able to work for them. But why should you anticipate when you don't have any proof or any grounds to stand on that, yes, the citizens are going to pay? So the best alternative should have been the IMF long ago, about some months ago.
The panel advised government to protect homegrown policy.
The Association of Ghana Industries is proposing a combination of micro and macroeconomic approaches in halting the rising inflation, which it describes as impacting negatively on businesses. It wants a deliberate effort to ensure agriculture and its value chain improved to reduce prices of foodstuff. Again, it wants policies that will trigger stable exchange rates, which will help slow the rate of imported inflation significantly. Food constitutes about 48% of the inflation basket. Together with fuel and transport, they have contributed to the recent hike in inflation rate, which is almost 30%. Here's President of the AGI, Dr. Humphrey Eyim-Dake, speaking at a forum organized by the Institute of Economic Affairs.
We all saw it when the rating agencies just made a pronunciation, and we saw the effect on capital movement way back sometime in the year, and effect on the inflation. So the flexible exchange rate regime has its own concerns, as much as it has its positive concerns, which I can seek to read for you. And that goes into the matured system or developed economies that works well for them. That has become the yardstick that we're using. So this proponent and the author of this document says that it is his belief that a combination of macro-micro, I'll call it a mixed method approach. And in the mixed method approach in the research, you will see the quantitative and the qualitative data being mixed and figuring out how best we could get the best designed methodology to solve problems. This is what the proponent of this document seeks to put across. And we believe in the set concept because the IT, which is the inflation target model, is carefully and eloquently described to what extent it can support the economy.
And that's Business. Sports is coming up next. Do stay tuned.